How's it going, good people? My name's Pedro, and it's just me, or in 2021, is it as hard to find an RTX GPU as it was when they first launched? Honestly, I feel like it's still day one, and the fact that all of the GPUs are being bought as quickly as they can come out is kind of ridiculous in my opinion. Either way, we're here today to have a look at a 3070 graphics card that I've managed to pick up for a mate of mine in an upcoming build anyway. So today we're going to be having a look at one of these GPUs. This is the MSI Ventus 2, a 3070 card that really only takes up a little more than 2 slots, which I'm really excited to look at because obviously being a big fan of small form factor PCs, having a compact and high performing GPU is really what it's all about when it comes to high-end, high-performance gaming hardware. And I think this 3070 is setting up to be a fantastic card. Judging from all of the initial reviews and specs and the releases and what's claimed by Nvidia, this card really stands up to be a phenomenal card for a lot of people to buy. That is considering that anyone can actually get their hands on this card. Now, before we go ahead and jump into the unboxing of this card and talk a little bit more about the specs and my opinions on using this card, I want to just take a quick second out here just to ask if you can quickly hit that like button, that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel a lot. And I guess without further ado, let's just jump into this. Alright, so now when it comes to the specs on the RTX 3070, basically this card starts off by having 8GB of GDDR6 memory. This is effectively the standard when it comes to modern graphics cards. I mean, sure, you can have GDDR6X Plus, which is basically faster and better memory, but all in all, when it comes to just using it for regular use for gaming or any sort of production workloads, you're not really going to notice a massive memory in the actual technology of the memory itself. Rather, having a massive amount of memory on the card itself actually proves to be really useful. And obviously the RTX 3070 we're looking at over here is no slouch in that department either. 8GB is enough to run a lot of games at effectively a really high quality, and on top of that, doing any sort of GPU intensive workloads, whether that would be any sort of photo editing, video making, animation, or even any sort of production. This card just simply is able to churn through all of that with relative ease, in all honesty. It's really impressive to look at a card like this and understand that there is little to nothing you can't throw at it that it's not able to crunch and crush with relative ease. Now, when it comes to choosing an RTX GPU over the rest of the competition out there, narrowing it down to the 3070 becomes relatively easy, because when you look at a couple of key factors, such as price to begin with, it is really a standout card. I mean, you compare this to something like the 3080 or the Fable 3090, this is a way cheaper card in comparison. Sure, you're not getting the crazy 24GB of GDDR6X memory, but at the same time, do you really need that much memory? There are very few tasks that actually need that much memory. Normal gaming, you can easily get by with a 3070 and still absolutely crush it in modern day titles, even running at a ridiculously high resolution monitor like 4K or an ultra wide that is 1440p. I don't think that a high-end graphics card is really needed for the vast majority of gamers, at least not until you start getting deep into the RTX and DLSS and all of the ray tracing features that really do shine on these GPUs themselves. Okay, so now the final factor I just want to touch on is the compatibility with cases for a GPU like the 3070. Now, I know anyone using a mid-tower case is probably thinking this is a moot point. Sure, grab a 3090 and chuck it in. You've got 5 to 6 to 7 expansion slots and you don't need to worry about anything. But anyone who's a fan of small form factor cases really has to take that as a massive consideration. Having a GPU that is too big to fit in your case can often lead to the actual downfall of aesthetics and overall performance of your case all in all. Now, that is the best case scenario. If you were to look at this in the worst case scenario, you've basically spent 2K on a graphics card that you literally can't even get into your case. This is a detrimental worst case scenario, but it's a little avoidable when you have a card like the 3070. It is literally 2 slots and can fit into the vast majority of cases, whether that would be the Ghost S1, the Dan case, the K55, or any case under the sun. As long as it has 2 slots, you really should be fine with just chucking it in and being right. Now, that is definitely one headache that you can definitely knock off your list when looking at a small form factor build, where every real part needs to be considered and meticulously thought out to have the most optimal build, keeping it at a reasonable price point. So by now, you're probably thinking this 3070 is a phenomenal GPU. I should probably go out and buy one right away. I'd say hold up there for a second. It wouldn't be a proper discussion out here, unless we look at both sides of the spectrum out here and understand effectively what we're getting out of this card and whether or not it is really worth it, because there are definitely some points that hold the GPU back all in all. To start off with, this GPU really isn't the most high-end card on the market. Sure, you're paying $500 for a GPU, but putting a little extra can yield you a GPU that can easily run 4K with ray tracing, which is really hard to find right now because of stocking issues like I mentioned before, but getting a 3080 would smoke the 3070 any day of the week. And that makes sense, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely something to consider. Like, whilst this is a great bang for buck card, paying that little bit extra does get you a fair bit more performance. And if it was my money being put down, I'd honestly look at picking up a 3080. That is if you're interested in a more higher end GPU, but at the same time, if you are way more budget conscious and you are looking to have a very well-rounded PC all in all, and I still don't think the 3070 is a bad idea, at least if you're coming in from the price to performance value. Now, along with this, it's important to note that Nvidia is not really the only card manufacturer anymore. For a long time, AMD has been a laughingstock in both the CPU and GPU markets, but in recent years, AMD has really given a punch to Intel in the CPUs, and now looks like they're doing the same thing when it comes to their GPUs themselves. The RX series is now a very competitive product when it comes to the Nvidia product stack. Now, I know it's a little different to what everyone's used to, but at the same time, you can get a card that is about the same in performance, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, depending on titles. All of this while being a little cheaper than the Nvidia cards. Now, I don't mean to take away from anything that Nvidia has built with the 3070, 3080, or 3090. I just think it's important for everyone to consider all of the options that are out there before pulling the trigger on one specific card that could lock them in for the next couple of years. Okay, but now back to the core point of this video. At the start, I said buying a GPU is really hard, and that's true. Like I said, shortages are happening everywhere when it comes to products, and I guess the whole pandemic isn't really helping a lot with this. But that being said, if you were to pick up a 3070 in 2021, I don't really think you're going to be doing that bad. Sure, it's not the latest, it's not the greatest, it's not the most high-end, and I think there are cards that are a little cheaper that offer similar performance, but for what you're paying, $500 for a GPU that can crush it in just about any title you throw at it, at 1080p, 1440p, even 4K if you're willing to turn off RTX. I think this is a phenomenal GPU. It's got a lot of value all in all, and I think when it comes to a graphics card, you really can't go wrong with the 3070. It is a very high-end card with a fairly budget price point, at least when it comes to a professional/gamer market. Now, if you like this video, please leave a comment down below. Let me know what graphics card you're running. How old is your rig? Let me know if you're planning on upgrading to a 3070, an RTX card, or even an AMD RX 6600. I'd really like to know, just to sort of understand and gauge where a lot of you are coming from, and in all honesty, this will help sort of drive future videos out there. Either way guys, my name's been Pedro, I hope you enjoyed this. If you want us to check out any other relevant videos, there should be something popping up, but until I talk to you guys next time, hope y'all have a good one.